Hey everybody, I'm Romi Hill and I am the designer behind Designs by Romi Patterns. And also I'm Romi Designs on Instagram and also on Blue Sky. And on Instagram, I post a bunch of little technical reels and fun how-tos and all of that. And so hopefully you follow me over there as well. If you don't, give me a follow and you'll see I post a bunch of stuff over there. Anyway, and I love going live and seeing you in the chat. So hopefully all of you will chat away and say hello and ask any questions that you want to ask or anything. Today, I am going to be talking about two patterns. Radical acceptance. I still don't have still don't have the sample back, but this is what it looks like. So it uses fauxchet, which I'm calling a technique that I developed for knitted granny clusters. And there are other people who do fauxchet type of things, like Zandy Peters, and but he does something a little bit different from my granny clusters. So I definitely didn't invent the term, but I'm using it happily. And then also, I'm going to go over more on promises to keep, which was the last pattern in my club. Let me see if I can unravel this here. Um, as you can see, I'm in a blue mood today. All the blue. I have all the blue. So I'm going to go over this one as well. So if you all had any questions, let me know, and I'm happy to answer on these. And if you have questions on other things, I prefer that you ask me ahead of time so that I can kind of track down what it is that you're asking. Sometimes people ask about a specific pattern, and I'm not sure, I have to pull it up and look at it again. So I can give you a better answer if you if you write to me beforehand. Hey, Heather and Terry, Judy, Diana, Sue, Victoria. It's so nice to see you all here. Thank you for joining me. So also just my plug, please like and subscribe. It's great. It kind of boosts me in the algorithm, and um, I would love it if you would do that. So before we get into anything, I did see this a question on Ravelry about if you have knit my patterns before, um, is there any like huge trick or anything like that to knitting the big lace patterns, like the large lace weight shawls? So no, not really. They're just larger and they're lace weight. So I tend to kind of separate them out because people who like lace weight yarns, um, big lace weight lacy shawls. And so I generally just look at them a little bit differently. It's like this little core group of lace loving people. But that does not mean that if you have knit some of my patterns, you can definitely knit one of my lace patterns. And the other part of the question was, does it need to be in lace weight yarn? Absolutely not. You can knit it in any yarn you want. So the big thing I think is getting a fabric that you like. So some of my favorite lace projects that I've ever seen have been knit in kind of heavier weight yarns. A friend of mine, for instance, knit a shawl in Icelandic unspun, and it was gorgeous. And it just sort of opened my mind to all the possibilities. And I think Jared Flood at one point knit a doily. Basically, he knit it in a heavier yarn and made a lap blanket out of it. And Franklin Habit. He also does some larger gauge lace. So the big thing is keeping the fabric the way that you would like it. So you don't want it to be stiff. For instance, like my shawls, lace weight shawls are anywhere from size 4 to 6 yarn. I'm sorry, needle size, US needle size, with lace weight yarn. So if you're going to go up and maybe, I mean, you could like even use worsted, or I've seen lace knit in bulky weight, and I've done it, and I think it's really cool. So if you do that, you want to keep sort of that same type of like flowy, sort of malleable kind of fabric that you would have in a lace weight. So you want to make sure that you go up in needle size as well, and it's not stiff because you want to be able to block it out at the end and stretch it nice. And so it's like really drapey and pretty. So yeah, just like have fun with it. And if you see a pattern that you think you might like to try, but you feel a little weird about it, I have a Ravelry group and also a Facebook group, and lots of helpful people in those groups. And then also, if you get stuck, you can write to me, and I can talk about things on YouTube, or like send you to a link where you might be able to find a tutorial on it. So jump in if you like something. I think that's like the big rule of knitting to me. If you're going to try something new, um, try something you really love. Like the first time that I ever did a lace, like a big lace shawl, I was way, way, way over my head, but I loved the finished shawl so much. Like I loved the pattern. So I was really motivated just to keep on and keep on. And I ripped it out a lot of times. And then in the end though, when I got to the end, I had learned so much about lace and like how to read my knitting, and how to graft lace, like two-sided lace, all this stuff. So I really wanted that finished shawl because it was this big square, like Shetland style shawl, and I loved it. So I just was motivated. I was just like, okay, I'm going to get this. And it felt so much better having that amazing project at the end rather than maybe trying to knit something that I thought was simpler, but I just really didn't like. And then I don't think I would have felt that big sense of accomplishment. So that's what I think. I think when you find something that you love, jump in, and you'll learn a lot. So, and a bunch of us will be here to help you. So, hopefully that answers that question. So, I'm going to be watching the comment section down here. So there's a delay, and today is kind of stormy. So we lost service earlier on today. Um, if I lose service in the middle of this, I I will try to reconnect if it comes right back. If it doesn't, then I will send out a notice to continue if I have left something that needs to be dealt with. But so feel free to like ask questions, talk about everything. I have one eye on the comment section, and I will do my best to answer your questions. Okay, so there are a couple of things on radical acceptance. I'm just going to do that first before we go on to the larger shawl. So someone was asking me what radical acceptance is. And radical acceptance is a concept where you accept without judgment reality, like things as they are. And then once you have accepted things how they are, you can move on, and you can change the things that you think that you can affect. And then other things that you know that you can't have an effect on, you put those aside. And it's basically a way to have peace of mind um, when things seem out of control or seem like it's just too much. And just accepting, yes, there are things in the world that you have no control over, but there are also lots of things that you do have control over, because each one of us has control over what we do and how we react to other things. And so it's a kind of a Buddhist concept, and lots of other philosophies are built off of it. So if any of you have seen Mel Robbins. She has a podcast and a book called The Let Them Theory, and that is also based on radical acceptance and stoicism. And then Alcoholics Anonymous also bases a lot of their philosophy on radical acceptance, the acceptance of the things that you can't change, and the willingness to change the things that you can change, and then knowing the difference between the two. So that is what radical acceptance is. Okay. Yay, Nicole made it. And hi, Elizabeth and May. It's lovely that you joined us. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to switch on over here. So here is radical acceptance. And there are a couple of things that I did not go over in this. This uses a T increase, and I know I've shown this before. And I also have a little tutorial on it. So last week, if you weren't here, I went through the triangle. And hi, Terry. And so this whole first part here, I went through the triangle. So if you miss that and you need it, there's both the start of it as like a standalone teeny tiny tutorial. And then last week, you can grab, you can see the start as well. So let me just move through here. So most of this pattern is written out, and I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. I have worse problems trying to keep track of written patterns like that, where they're just like long stretches of stitches, and so I put markers in there so that I don't mess everything up. So I am going to show you. I'm going to show you how to do the T increase. So I need to get back onto the right side. But let's go through this part here. Um, this is how I keep track of my T increases. So I keep track of my center stitch using this, just a piece of waste yarn. And it helps me just to be able to figure out like what my center stitch is. So you can either make a stitch with your waste yarn every time you go by it, or just every other row or so. And then I will just pull it out as I go. And kind of, I just move it up a little bit. So let's get to the end here. And I'm going to turn around. And for those of you who are here a little bit late, please go ahead and ask questions, and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, so on radical acceptance, I use garter stitch because garter stitch is great in modular knitting because it is basically square. So here's my center stitch. You can see that I can tell where that center stitch is, which is what I wanted. I'm just going to slip this off because I don't want to knit my T increase into it. And I'm just going to kind of give that a pull out. Okay, so here is the T increase. It's by Asia Brill, and I think it's genius. I've seen people do this in other ways, but she took it and made it into one motion, and I think it's really elegant and easy to remember this way. So I'm going to take this, I'm slipping it purlwise, and I'm going to bring it over the top here, and I'm keeping my needle in, and now I'm going to knit a stitch there and just take the right leg off of my needle. Okay, so I'm going to work the center stitch into the middle here. And since it's the center stitch, I am going to put my waste yarn there as well so I can remember where the center stitch is. So this is instead of just taking out markers and putting them back in, because it gets fiddly. This is just faster for me. Maybe not for you, but try it. You might like it. Okay. And then I have one more stitch to do. I'm going to work a stitch into this left leg here. So I'm going to knit a stitch. So I'm basically twisting that left leg to knit the stitch. So here's what I have. I have 3 stitches from one, and it's a double centered increase, but it gives you this really neat um, little center increase here. And you can't see it as much on the garter stitch, but it just looks cleaner in garter stitch as well. So like you're not going to see this nice little clean stitch here that's going to have a purl bump across it. However, what you are going to see is that it just looks really clean. So you don't have any of those problems with pulling of yarn around the edge here where you do increases. So this is being knit at a looser gauge here. If you were going to use this on a sweater or something like that for a raglan increase, and you have a tighter gauge, you're going to want to prepare the middle stitch on the wrong side before you use this increase on the right side. So for this, however, because I'm knitting at a looser gauge, I did not prepare the stitch. So let's see if any questions. Okay. So honestly, I swear I meant it like you guys can go ahead and talk and ask questions and stuff. Um, Okay, so that is the T increase, and that is part of my radical acceptance shawl. Okay, so there was another, just going to do a few questions. I wrote my questions down so I can have a brain and remember this. Okay, so there were a bunch of other little um, stitches in here. I think that was those are the only couple of questions I got specifically about that. Okay, so in here, um, everything is pretty much straightforward. I did have a question about chaining, um, and I put my yarn out to, yeah, I think I left my yarn over in the corner, so I'm just going to get up for a moment and go grab my yarn. This is so embarrassing. Um, and I'm still talking here, but yeah, I left my Franken swatch over in the corner. So, okay, so back again. So another question I got was about the chain. So in here, I say a chain is no increase or decrease. So a chain is it's actually simpler than it sounds. So I'm going to just do my edging here. I have these worked through the back loop on the side. I like to twist my edges because it makes it nice and neat. Okay, so to do a chain, no increase or decrease, you're going to yarn over. So when you yarn over, you always yarn over onto your right needle, and then you are going to pass the second stitch over that first stitch to chain. And that is a chain. So that is, it's mimicking crochet. So you can actually chain lots and lots. I mean, I could just keep chaining and chaining. And after a while, I would see a longer chain forming here. But in this particular pattern, um, I just want that one chain. So now if you were to do that English style, you're going to yarn over like this, and then same thing, you're going to pass that over. I'm not a very good English knitter, as you probably all know, but don't laugh too hard. And that's your chain if you're an English knitter. So no increase or decrease. It's just that little chain, and it just makes the stitch a little bit taller. So, hi Patty, I'm so glad the scrap of yarn appeals to you. I hope you try it. Um, it saves a lot of time. Okay, and then just a few other things I talked about in here. Um, Most of these I went over the first, like last week when I was talking about the pattern before. So just the fauxchet, again, we talked about how it's just, knitting made to look like crochet. And then a granny cluster. So I am calling. This is my giant swatch that I used to develop this method. So this is what I'm calling a granny cluster here. That group of 3 stitches looks just like a granny cluster in crochet. So that is what a granny cluster is. And let's see. So there's a couple other things. Okay, so one other thing that I have in here, and I also use this in my Promises to Keep shawl. So I'm just going to do this really quick. So let me turn around here. So I have something that I call a slip yarn over, and that is, it basically makes a double-decker yarn over. So here is my yarn over from the previous side. So on the wrong side, I'm not going to work that with a stitch. I am going to slip that, and then I'm going to do a yarn over it. God, it's that English style thing again. I can't do this. And then I'm going to do a yarn over the top of it. So what you end up with is this double yarn, like double stranded yarn over. So, but there's only one hole there, if that makes sense. So it makes it basically the yarn over looks taller, and I think it looks kind of cool. So that's along on the edge. And let me show you what that looks like, continental style, because I do it, it looks more elegant when when I do it that way. So I'm just going to slip, and you can see the yarn, it basically, that yarn just goes over the top, and then I bring it back and work to the end. And when we're going back, so let me show you what that looks like going the other way. So when we're going back the other way, this is what we're going to come to, is this 2 strands here. Then you're just going to work into the middle of that. So it's just basically a tall yarn over. So you can see, this is like a double-decker yarn over. It goes over 2 rows, and it just gives a little bit more of a lacy look to yarn overs. Okie dokie. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of back out of my basically my short row here. And I'll show you a bunch of other stitches as we come to it. Okay, so Icelandic bind off is used on this, and it gives you a really nice edge to it. So on an Icelandic bind off, you're going to start, you're going to work 2 stitches. Sorry, you're going to work 1 stitch, put it back onto your left needle. So you don't want to be too tight with this. It's okay if, and actually it's good if it's sort of loose and sloppy when you're doing this, because then you'll have a lot of stretch. So basically work 1 stitch, place it back onto your left needle, and then work a stitch, the next stitch, through the stitch that you just put back. So you can get a nice rhythm to it. And I always do it loose so I have some stretch. So I'm just going to put this back on. So if it stretches out like this, don't worry about it. Just going to knit that stitch, trying to see this while I'm on my camera while I'm working the stitch. And today is just not working. Okay. And you can kind of see that it's loose there. And it gives you this really nice rolled edge like this. And I think it's beautiful. So even though it looks similar to a traditional bind off, it is not. So, and I'll show you like taking this out. So here I'm trying to take it out. Like a traditional bind off will just really just pop out. An Icelandic bind off, you're going to have to go to some extra work to kind of pick out the stitches. So that's a way if you're not sure if you're doing it right, you can try taking it out. If you can't take it out, you're doing it right. So I know that I've seen some people say that the Icelandic bind off is actually the same as a standard bind off. It is not. So although some people did learn an Icelandic bind off as a standard bind off, so you may be one of those people. In which case, lucky you, because I learned kind of a tight and uh, difficult to stretch bind off. So, okay, let's see if I can get this out. Okay, so if anybody has any more questions about radical acceptance, let me know. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I actually was going to show you one more thing. So, radical acceptance is modular. So that means you're going to be picking up some stitches along this edge here. So that's why we're doing garter stitch, because garter stitch is square. So one stitch per 2 rows. So when you go to pick up stitches alongside, on one time you're going to pick it up on the right side and knit it, and on the next time you're going to pick up and knit on the wrong side. So this is how you do that. Um, when you pick up and knit those stitches, you're just going to pick these little bumps up here. So right alongside here, this is what you're going to use. So that's how you're going to keep your fabric nice and flat. And at first it's going to look like, oh, that's way too thick right around along the side here. But as you're knitting the stripes, it will just sort of fade into the background of your fabric. So remember, you're not picking up in the middle, like in here or something like that. You are using these little garter bumps right on the side, and you're going to pick up and knit through the back loop into these. So sometimes it helps me to handle these if I pick up those bumps onto a small needle first and then go by and knit them through the back loop. So that can be helpful if you're having problems picking them up. Hi, Marianne. I'm so glad you were able to make it. We were missing you. So if you want to do that, remember, if you want to pick those bumps up before you knit them, you're going to need to like slide them down to the other end of the needle because you don't, this is just basically helping you get these. So once they're picked up like this, then you can go along with your working yarn and then knit through the back loop like this. So, and here's where I always talk about the distinction between pick up and knit. Even though, and I'm totally guilty of this too when I'm talking, even though sometimes I use them interchangeably, pick up and knit in a pattern are two different things. So pick up is just what I just showed you, those little loops along the edge there where I did not use any new yarn. Pick up and knit is where you pick up and you use new yarn. So sometimes they are not distinguished in a pattern, but usually you can tell if you look at the context of the instruction. Okie dokie. Alrighty, so now let's go on. Trying to move all my yarn around here. Let's go on and talk about promises to keep. And I'm just going to put my radical acceptance to the side here. Okay, here is promises to keep. So I talked a lot about this last time about how I increase in the midst of the patterning. So my increases are hidden. So instead of doing this is vaguely pie shawl-esque in that it has the sort of proportions of a half pie shawl, but I did not use the pie shawl shaping, which is doubling stitches. So for instance, like double the stitches after row 2, double the stitches after row 4, double the stitches after row 8. I did not do that. Instead, I try to make this look more organic in here. So let's see. So Sue asked, is it possible to chart the fauxchet for future projects? Um, maybe, um, possibly. I I did try to chart it because I love charts, and my issue was it made it look really confusing to me. Um, so I'm trying to figure out what to do about that. In crochet, it's much easier to chart this. So if you take a look so in a crochet, you may have seen the Japanese crochet charts, and there would be 3 stitches here, and then a chain and 3 stitches. In knitting, however, to make this look like crochet, there is a combination of things that happen in here. Like at the first part, I started out with a chain, so there's a chain in there. So these stitch boxes, the symbols, don't represent the finished look of the product at all. And I thought it looked extraordinarily confusing, but I will try and see what I can do about charting. I mean, I am definitely a chart lover as well, so I mean, I hear you there. And also, I'm really glad you like promises to keep. Okay, so here's what I'm going to talk about today. Placing beads, and I promised you to talk about noops. So here are some noops for you. And yeah, I mean, most of this is very straightforward. I personally think. However, we all we all like different things. So it may not be straightforward at all to you. Okay, so this is a 5-stitch noop. And let me move this aside. Okay. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. So I also did the slip yarn over on this as well. So that was what I just showed you to make that sort of double-decker yarn over. Okay, so let's get in a little ways in here. Um, so I mentioned this a little bit before. I think that doing noops continental style is much easier than doing them English style. So, um, or at least it is for me. I mean, everything's easier continental style for me, but it just my English noops turn out really tight. So here we go with a continental noop. So I'm not going to try to tighten this up at all. and I want to keep this loose because on the purl side, we're going to purl together 5 stitches. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm kind of letting these stitches get elongated a little bit. So knit 1, yarn over, and I like to keep my finger on the stitches so that they don't get too tight. So I am basically keeping those stitches nice and loose like this. So on the back side, I can stick my needle through them easily. So that's what it's going to look like. So let me show you my issue with the English style Nupp. Okay, so because of the way that a yarn over is done in English knitting, it's basically a yarn forward like this. It's very difficult to keep it from becoming super tight. So you can see already that's really tightening up. Okay, so here is what I do when I do English style. So I'm going to go in here and knit my stitch, bring my yarn in front, and I'm going to do a double yarn over. So I just wrapped my needle all the way around, and now I'm going to dip in for a knit. Okay, and now I'm just going to do another double yarn over, and I'm going to stick my finger on there and dip in for another knit. Okay, so right now this looks super tight and it also has too many loops, but when we are going back the other way, um, I will show you how it gets nice and loose. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this over and come on back. Okay, so here is my my Nupp. So I'm just going to kind of slip these, and I undid one of the yarn overs. So now I have my stitches are much looser here, and I can easily get my needle through all 5 strands in order to purl those together. And there's my Nupp. And now let's go down to my continental Nupp. So this one, they're already nice and loosened up. Just going to stick my needle through there and purl those together and work to the end. And I see there are a couple of questions and comments, and I will take a look at those in just a sec. Okay, so here is the comparison. See, they basically look the same. Here's the continental one. Here was the English one. And that's what you want. They're not like a bauble. So it's basically just a little extra bit of ornament there. And when you block it out, you can see it just looks a little denser in this area. So unlike a bauble, so it's just kind of a little dense area and it adds to the pattern. Okay, and then let me see. So Sue, you were saying maybe a stitch symbol for each 3 stitch. So the problem with that is that we're back to radical acceptance here. So the problem with having a symbol for each 3 stitch is that one of these stitches includes binding off. So as you're finishing off this last group of 3 here, that last stitch here is actually a bind off. So this is what I ran into because there's something different done with that first stitch here. It was it was pretty confusing, and I sort of just set it aside to take a look at later. And then let me see. Yes, definitely. The yarn over definitely tightens up on your noops. You want nice, fluffy noops. Okay, let's see if I missed anything here. Okay, so that's your noop magic there. So on this chart here, I'm gonna find some beads. Okay, so beads are marked on here with these colored little squares. So if you don't want to deal with placing the beads on the wrong side, you can actually place them on the right side. If you place them on the right side, you need to make sure that you have already finished the stitch. So what we're looking for here is to place a bead right on top of that point. So let's bring this down. So this is what it looks like right on top of a point here. So you can see up above that bead, there's an SK2P that was executed there, so there's only one point. So if you're going to place a bead on the right side, and some people like to do that because it's kind of a pain sometimes to remember to do anything on the wrong side. So if you want to change them, make sure you're going to do the stitch first and then place the bead over the top of it. So here's what that would entail. We're going along here and we're going to place the bead normally. Here's a yarn over and an SK2P, and then I will get that bead on the way back. Okay, so say I don't want to do that, so I'm going to do a yarn over and then an SK2P here. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm going to slip it back over to my left needle and I am going to place a bead now that I've done that. So my bead is going to go over the top of that. So once the bead is placed, I'm just going to slip my stitch back. I'm not going to work it again. So I just place my bead right at the top there. And now let's go to the end and I'm just going to turn around in the middle again. So on the back side, as I'm going by, I'm not going to do anything to that one that I placed the bead on. So here it is. Here's the stitch that I placed the bead on. I'm just going to purl it. I'm not going to do anything else. That's all that needs to happen. And I'm going to work on by here. And now I'm at my other point where I was going to place a bead on my SK2P. And I'm just going to place it right over the top of both of those legs. And now I'm going to purl the stitch. So on the wrong side, when you place the bead, you are going to work the stitch afterwards as a purl. Okay, and then this is what that looks like. So you can see it doesn't look different, except this one has a new right in the bottom there. So it doesn't look different. It's exactly the same result. So if you are someone who doesn't like to deal with anything on the wrong side, then you might want to do it that way that I showed. Just do your stitch, place your bead over the top, and then continue on. And then on the wrong side, all you have to do is just purl across. So look, same, same, same. Okay, so I don't think that there's anything in here that's really hugely, no, I should show you the stretchy bind off. is my fave. This has just a plain old stretchy bind off. You may know this also as the Russian bind off, and it's I love it for lace and really for anything. It's really a nice, just workable, stretchy bind off. I've never been able to bind off too tightly with this, but I have seen people bind off too loosely. So you don't want to keep this loose at all. Just use your normal tension. And probably even sometimes if you are a tight binder offer, you can be tight on this and it won't end up seeming tight at all. So this is basically just decreasing out. So you're not ever actually binding off anything. You're going to work two stitches in pattern. And if you are working a pattern in a chart or something like that, you can bind off as you're working the pattern and it will look fine. Then you're going to put them back onto your left needle and now knit two together through the back loop. So you can do this faster as well. You don't have to, I always take a little shortcut. I always keep my right needle still in those two stitches and knit two together through the back loop. And you're just going to continue on doing that. Basically looks the same English style. So you're going to just keep adding one stitch worked and then knit two together through the back loop. And this is going to give you a super nice, workable, stretchy bind off if you don't split your yarn like I am. Okay, there we go. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is what it looks like. It looks very similar to just a regular bind off, but if you turn it over here, you can see it a little thicker. And it's really super stretchy, very blockable, and it's great for all sorts of things. I like this for necklines as well. You can always get it over your head if you use this bind off. So let's see. I have a question over. So Judy said, are there beads during the bind off and how do you do it? So during the bind off, what you're going to do, there are beads. So what you're going to do is we're actually binding off on the wrong side on the pattern. So pretend this is the wrong side. So you're just going to place your bead like this and then work the stitch and bind it off like that. And then you're going to see the bead is going to be under these two layers here. I'll show you that again. Let me grab another bead here. So you're just going to place your bead, work your stitch, and on the shawl, it's actually a purl because it's binding off on the wrong side. Here I'm binding off on the right side. And then you're just going to bind that off. And that is what it's going to look like. So your bead is going to be closer to the edge. So now when I blocked my shawl, I have very fine um, flexible wires. So I passed my flexible wire through each one of my beads and pinned it out. So I'll show you what that looks like. Um, so I just passed them through the edge. So it actually just kind of stretched this out a little bit. And then it gives you the I kind of the impression that the bead is on the very, very edge when it's not actually on the very edge. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so May, I've never known anybody to be able to do the Russian bind off too tight. So now I can't say that anymore. So yeah, everybody knits a little bit different. So if it doesn't really if it doesn't really work for you, I mean, you know best. So yeah. So and that kind of brings up something that I think I can't say enough of, which is, and whenever you see somebody show you a technique or say, like, this is how you do a specific method, or, I come on here and I'm showing you all the different ways to do techniques. Some of them are going to work for you and some of them aren't because we all hold our knitting needles a little bit differently. We knit just a little differently and sometimes a lot differently. And so no one can really say, hey, this is the only way to do this, or this is what you have to do. So if you try it and it doesn't work for you, then go with what does work for you. Like it's not wrong to do that. If you get the required result and you are happy with it, then that is what matters. So everything is kind of a suggestion. If it something works better for you, then go for it. And that's awesome. I often teach classes where I show several different techniques of ways to get to the same like endpoint. And sometimes people will just be like, oh my God, I like this one is, why would anybody want to do this? And somebody else in the class is sitting there like, oh, this finally clicked. So we are all very different, which is, I think, pretty cool. So let's see, any questions here? Okay. Okay. So I don't see any more questions. And I see some more storm coming over the mountain, kind of out my window here. So I am just going to like be really happy that I was able to stay connected for these 55 minutes or so. And I'm going to say farewell today. And I'm not going to have a live next week. But if you send me questions, if there's anything you want to know, stuff you want me to demonstrate, let me know. And I will like save them up and have another live and talk about it. And so, yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And it was lovely to see you over there chatting in the comment section. It's a huge day brightener for me. And you are my people. So thanks for joining me and take good care. Have a great weekend. Stay warm, stay safe, be well, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.